Welcome to the Jesus Calling video story. Today, we visit with Donna Edwards, the First Lady of the state of Louisiana. Donna shares a little bit about her life and background, including partnering with her husband, Governor John Bel Edwards, in public service. As part of that service and in devotion to God, Donna felt led to share Jesus Calling with women inmates in her state and visited them in person to deliver the books. She talks about this day and how this gesture of kindness and service blessed her and the women she interacted with that day. We also interviewed two of the women who received Jesus Calling from the First Lady at the Louisiana Correctional Institute and hear their stories of hope and redemption, even while facing extended prison time.
My name is Donna Edwards. I'm the First Lady of Louisiana. My biggest blessing is that I'm married to my high school sweetheart of 28 years, and we have 3 children. I was born in Mississippi. My mom, we always laugh and say she was a domestic engineer. She is one of those women who can put out a spread of food and have it cleaned up before you go back into the kitchen. She is like the hostess with the mostest. And she was always there when I came home. And literally, I remember her having a Tupperware bowl of cookie dough, and it was pecan cookies, and she would scoop out every day and have fresh cookies. I mean, literally something right out of a book. And my dad worked for International Paper Company, and I was the youngest of 2 brothers, so I was the baby girl, and I was tough. And he would take me out in the woods, taught me how to hunt. Showed me how to use a compass, and he showed me how to handshake really firm because he'd gone to one of those Dale Carnegie courses, and so he just taught me to be strong and who I am, and so together they I think produced a pretty strong woman. I can remember on Sunday afternoons after church we'd go walking in the woods, especially in the fall, swing on vines, and it was just a lot of fun growing up in the neighborhood and hanging out with kids and running the roads on bicycles. And then we moved to Amite, Louisiana, when I was in 5th grade. And that's when I met my husband. Then we started dating in high school, and then he went on to, he was a year older than I was, so he went on to West Point Military Academy, and I went to school in Mississippi, and then we got back together, and after he graduated, he went to Ranger School, and then we got married, and then our first tour duty was in Hawaii, Schofield Barracks, yes, and then we came back to the States after a couple years, and then did some training, and then ended up at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. So we served a total of 8 years, a little over 8 years in the military. Decided to come back. After having 2 children, we came back to our hometown in Amite, and that's when he went back to law school. Got a law degree, and we came back and opened up a little practice in our small town. We both were involved in our community for the next 8 years, being involved in the church group and youth group and PTO and all that great stuff. So my husband's family is from a line of public servants. His dad was the sheriff of our parish. His brother is currently the sheriff. His dad, his grandfather, his great-grandfather. And his mom was an emergency room for a charity hospital for 25, 30 years. And so, he was brought up around that public servants and giving of yourself and helping people. And it was just almost a natural thing for him to be involved in it. He was asked to run for state representative. The seat was open. And so he did. I, at the time, was raising 3 children and had gone back to school to get a certificate in teaching, and I was teaching school, and so we were very busy, and like many families. And so he served at the state level district as state representative for 8 years, and then he just saw a lot of things that he just felt like he couldn't change, and he was either going to really go forward or just kind of get out and do something different. And so he decided just to run for governor. And to be honest with you, nobody really believed it. In fact, he got very little support from his party, very little support from a lot of the people around him. He had support. I mean, obviously he wouldn't be governor, but he really worked hard, and he knew this was something that he was called to do, and we decided to do it together, and so here we are, a year and a half in the governor's mansion. the one thing that really came out of this campaign stronger than anything in regards to my faith and my marriage is that we were together as a team, John Bel and I. He and I would pray every morning, and we would find that strength together, and we still do that. And that didn't start until then. Not that we weren't prayerful, but we didn't start every morning together, holding hands and praying. And so it forced us to do that because we were both in this together, and we knew, we were up against a lot. We've seen us both really become planted, if you will, and firm. We've always been firm in our direction and what we felt were our morals and values. We've always been firm and set in that. But it's really just cemented, It's just like, this is who we are, and this is how we believe, and this is what we trust. And I've said this during the campaign, the second greatest commandment that Jesus said was to love your neighbor as yourself. And he never said who your neighbor was or is. Didn't say if they're black, they're white. I feel like as Christians, we haven't done a very good job in loving our neighbor. To love your neighbor as yourself, what does that mean? That means I am not called to judge my neighbor. I'm not called to judge you. I may not agree with you. I may not agree with what you think. I may not agree with your political position. There's lots of things that we can disagree, and we don't necessarily have to agree, but I'm called to love you regardless. And I think that's where we're missing the boat as Christians. It's not for us to put our finger in people's face and judge. It is for us to love them. And I know that if we did more of that, we'd have more people come into Christ. You bring people together by showing them how this works. How do you love people? You love them with the love of Christ. First of all, no one is perfect. We're all sinners. Jesus tells us in his scripture, I was in prison, you visited me. There's many places in Scripture where he calls us to visit those in prison. When I went to the NGA, which is the National Governors Association, we always get with the ladies, the first ladies, and exchange ideas. It's really a wonderful opportunity to find out what other states are doing. And so one of the other first ladies from Tennessee had given us a flyer about sharing Jesus calling with those imprisoned and women. I thought, oh, absolutely, I'll do this without a doubt. So I came back and said, look, I want to do this. I want to order these books, and told them exactly how to do it. And so, and they said, well, we're going to be distributing. Do you want to be a part of that? I said, absolutely, I want to be there. I want to, I want them to know who cares about them and be behind it. But just as God always is with me, He doesn't always show me everything. And I had this impression in my mind that I was going to walk into this room and just, talk to these few women and hand them a book and, just spend some time with them. When I opened that door to the cafeteria and I stepped inside, and 150 women who were in prison stood up and applauded the fact that I stepped into their life that day. It was the most humbling experience. I can't even explain it. That they were so impressed with the fact that I came. It still sometimes shocks me, because I'm just an ordinary person, just like you and anybody else that's listening. And so, it just goes to prove those who are the least among us, those who are in prison and hospitals, they are so looking for somebody to look up to for hope, somebody to give them a little bit of something, attention, and tell them they're worthy of who they are. And so it was a very humbling experience that they stood up and applauded. And, I still wonder, what is that about? What was that about? And I know after visiting with them, we were a sign of hope for them. And when I say hope that someone cared about them, that they weren't just thrown away. We brought, through Jesus calling, an opportunity for them to have hope. And so that was a very humbling experience. One particular lady had been incarcerated for 20 plus years, and to hear her story, how she came to know Jesus and how he had just, really had taken over her life, and that's humbling. That's humbling how God can change a person. These ladies, they're incarcerated for a reason. They're serving their punishment. I don't know what they've done. I'd rather not know. There is a victim. There's a victim's family, and I can't even imagine what that must feel like to step in the shoes of a victim or a victim's family would be the hardest thing. And I pray for those families that have been affected or have maybe their lives turned upside down and possibly ruined by what another person incarcerated may have done. And I'm so sorry for that. But we still have to love them, and we still have to forgive them, because, even Jesus himself, when asked, Jesus, they asked Jesus, give us a prayer, and he says, "Our Father," which means he's the Father of all of us. So those are our sisters in Christ. And he goes on to say, forgive us our, forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. We ask God to forgive us of our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. That's difficult. It's difficult. And so, I think it's like many things. We just say the words and we don't really think about them. And we have to think about those words. Forgiveness is a really strong and hard thing to do in a lot of instances. And it truly is only with God's help and praying and asking for God to help you can one truly forgive.
The First Lady was able to bring hope to the women in the Louisiana Correctional Institute by answering God's call to walk among them and through the gift of Jesus Calling. She goes on to talk about how she makes Jesus Calling a part of her everyday life.
I feel like this is kind of like a little letter from God every morning in the mailbox. You know how you used to run to the mailbox as a kid to see what was there, and you were so excited. And, you don't get that so much anymore. You're flooded with emails. But I feel like this is like a little note from God every day. And so I can't even hardly leave without looking to see what it says. It's like I can't get up from my chair until I've made sure I've read my Jesus Calling. I do have one that I had just written about and talked about in my journal, and it's August 10th. It says, "Relax in my healing, holy presence, and allow me to transform you through this time alone with me. As your thoughts center more and more on me, trust displaces fear and worry. Your mind is somewhat like a seesaw. As your trust in me goes up, fear and worry automatically go down. Time spent with me not only increases your trust, it also helps you discern what is important and what is not. Energy and time are precious, limited entities. Therefore, you need to use them wisely, focusing on what is truly important. As you walk close to me, saturating your mind with Scripture, I will show you how to spend your time and energy. My word is a lamp to your feet. My presence is a light for your path." That's what's so neat when you trust in God. You get on the path and you trust in that path and you walk that path with Him, and you don't know where it leads. And that's why every day is a new day, and that's why every day is a gift.
Next up on the Jesus Calling podcast, we speak with two women who are currently incarcerated in the Louisiana Correctional System. Both of these women were present the day that Governor's wife Donna Edwards came by with copies of Jesus Calling to give to all of the inmates. They each share about their own lives before and after their incarcerations and what the First Lady's visit meant to them, and how they face life in prison by daily trusting God.
My name is Sharonda, and I'm 33 years old. I have one daughter. I was raised by my mother and my stepfather. I come from a Christian upbringing, but I ended up going astray. I never had a real understanding of the Bible, so I kind of was lost, and I also felt like religion was forced upon me at the time. It wasn't until I started going astray that I felt my heart crying out to God. It was kind of like my soul was just crying within my body, because I was so lost. I went from bad relationship to bad relationship. I lost a child when I was 17 years old, and that sent me into a big depression. And I also started rebelling against God, because I felt how could you take a life so precious and so innocent? I started looking to the wrong people for love and affection. I ended up trading God for money, basically, because I felt I pushed Him on the back burner because I wanted material possessions in life. I ended up committing a crime, and I came to jail on a 50-year sentence. And I was broken because I have never been a person to harm somebody else, and for me to commit the crime that I committed, it was kind of I can't believe that I just done that, hurt somebody. And I was crying out to God. I remember being in a holding cell, and I was like, Lord, I need you. Like, I'm so broken. I don't know who else to call but you. And in the midst of it, it's like I was given a Bible, a contemporary English Holy Bible, and I was able to understand the words that was in it and everything. And it's like, I felt like the words are coming alive to me, like God was really talking to me through that Bible. And that's where I first found Jesus at. The void that I had, it's like God came in and he filled that void for me. I didn't no longer look to a person for love and affection when I already had it all the time. I started looking at it like God had been through everything with me, so why would I leave him again? It's like, no, I want to be where he at. So let me get myself straight. And it's like, he started pointing out more things to me, okay? It's more things that need to leave, like I was harboring unforgiveness. I prayed and I prayed on that, and he allowed me to be able to forgive people that hurt me, not just people that hurt me, but me forgive myself, because that was like the hardest thing. It's just amazing to know that God's love for you, and to also know that your faith is not in man's hands. See, man gave me a 50-year sentence, but God didn't say that. It's whatever God feels fit for me, and that's what I'm okay with. Whether it's my earthly home I return to or my heavenly home, I'm okay with that. I see my future as leading more people to God. I believe that I could lead millions to God. I want to be that person. It doesn't matter whichever field he put me in, whether it's missionary work or whatever, because I don't always see myself inside these walls. I always pray to God and I say, God, put people in my path that need your guidance, Allow me to be a light to somebody's path.
Sharonda is now pursuing seminary studies through the chaplain's program at her parish prison and wants to be a preacher. She longs to share with others the love and healing she has found in Christ, much as the First Lady of Louisiana shared Jesus' calling with Sharonda and others in her community.
We were all excited. Myself, I was really excited. Like, this lady's taking time out of her days to come and visit us, inmates. And she was this little lady, and she was so filled with the Spirit. Amazing. Like, she didn't act snobby with us or anything. She was just a God-fearing woman who came out there to, give us some books, and it was amazing. She shook our hands, and she was very sweet to us. And the Jesus Calling book, I read it every day. Like, the devotional for today really spoke to me. I'm going to read this devotional for today, for August 16th, out of the Jesus Calling. It says, meet me in early morning splendor. I eagerly await you here. In the stillness of this holy time with me, I renew your strength and saturate you with peace. While others turn over for extra sleep or anxiously tune in to the latest news, you commune with the creator of the universe. I have awakened in your heart strong desire to know me. This longing originated in me, though it now burns brightly in you. When you seek my face in response to my love call, both of us are blessed. This is a deep mystery, designed more for your enjoyment than for your understanding. I am not a door God who discourages pleasure. I delight in your enjoyment of everything that is true, noble, right, pure, lovely, admirable. Think on these things, and my light in you will shine brighter day by day. That's truly amazing. I always pray for, God, strengthen my hunger for you, strengthen my desire for you. And it just lets me know that he hears me. So many things that I prayed for start coming to pass. And it was amazing because it was like, hold on, I've been praying for that since I was a child. And here he goes, he making this a reality to me. And it was just amazing. Like my biological father, he found me and he had been waiting for me to contact him. He had been looking for me my whole entire life. And it was just amazing. From then I have siblings. So many siblings. It's just amazing, the love that was coming from all over. He put people in my life to let me know that I've always been loved. And that's something that I was lacking. If you give God a chance, he can straighten your life up, just like he straightened mine up. When I felt like I was nothing, or I felt like what I've done was unforgivable, God gave me a second chance. You don't need a human figure to validate who you are. God is there and he loves you regardless of your mistakes.
Stay with us as we visit with another woman who shares her story of redemption and how she is learning to forgive herself, just as God and others have forgiven her.
My name is Tina. I'm 50 years old. I have a son that's 26 and a grandbaby that's 9. I was raised in a broken home. My natural father was an alcoholic. He was very abusive. My natural mother left us when we were little. I had a horrible life. But I grew up Catholic. I was the oldest of 3 daughters, and I would make my sisters go to church every Sunday. I felt like that's what I needed to do. And we never missed. And then when we were at my grandmother's, my grandmother would take us. I was a very broken, very depressed person. I did not own my own Bible until I was an adult. And I didn't read it much then. When my son got to be a teenager, I decided I was going to be his Sunday school teacher. And the only time I read my Bible is when I had to do the lesson. I just wanted to die. I didn't have any hope. When I went to court and they sentenced me to life in prison because I took my friend and her friend's lives. I remember the day. I remember being in the back of the squad car and going through the town that I usually hung out in and realizing that I would never visit those places again. And I think that's when I truly gave my life to God. My exact words were, "God, no human can help me now except you." And I gave my life to God. I went through a lot of changes in prison, and one of my victims' cousin came to LCIW, and she was at Phelps. And one of the days she came up to me and she said, "Miss Tina, I'm from Delhi." And I picked up her name tag and I looked, and her last name matched one of the ladies that I had killed. And she told me, she said, "I've been watching you for a couple of months." She said, "I read a story about you in the Unveiled, the magazine we have for prison." She said, "I wanted to see whether you were living the life that they portrayed in this magazine." And she said, "I know you are." And I couldn't do anything but cry. I never expected that. She told me she forgave me. For her to forgive me, it was like, wow, how? I can't even forgive myself. I'm not there yet. I know God loves me. And I love that He is allowing me to see Him work in my life. I mean, so many things are happening in my life that didn't happen at home. I would have never given an interview. I've given speeches. I've never did that at home. But I think anyone at home or here needs to know that God's there. And if you don't feel Him in here, just watch Him work in your life. If you ask God to come into your life, He is going to come and He's going to show out. When I first got there, I never looked at anyone. I walked with my head down. I cried all the time. I was scared, and I had no hope. When I first got in prison, everybody kept saying, "Oh, well, you're a Christian. You have to love people." And I kept telling them, "No, I don't. I choose who I love." And one night I was laying in my bed, and I got woke up, and I don't know if it was God talking to me or what, but what was said to me was, "You will love the seminary first." I never wanted to go to seminary. I was a chapel worker, and I was happy being a chapel worker. I loved helping the seminary. I knew my jobs were going to change, but I didn't know that most of my jobs would be given to somebody else. And one of the volunteers told me one day, I was talking to her about it, and she said, "Tina, when God closes one door, He always opens another." And I said, "What do you mean by that?" I said, I'm in prison. You know, I can't leave here. She said, Tina, it's time. And I said, time for what? She said, time for you to go to seminary. And I'm excited about going to seminary. I want to learn all I can. I was a chapel worker for 3 years, and I loved my job. And I always wondered, why did I feel okay in prison? And I have adopted mama and a daddy. And my mama told me one day on the phone, she said, baby, it's okay to be happy in prison. And I was. I don't want to be here. But this is where I am. And I think God can use me. When I think of the governor and his wife, I think of change. They're making changes. I was excited, but I didn't really understand what was going on. And for her to stand up there and hand out each book to every offender, it was like, man, she does care. You know, she kept saying, you know, that she's praying for us and all that, and I truly believed her.
Tina describes how she got her first copy of Jesus Calling while helping a group of ladies organize church services in her prison.
Miss Virginia, one of the ladies, came up to me and she had a gift. She said, Tina, I want to give you this. So I opened it, and it was Jesus Calling. And it was like, I started crying. I said, thank you so much. I mean, that meant so much to me for her to give me a devotional. And back then, I didn't read any devotionals. I barely read my, Bible. But she gave it to me, and I have read it. And then when the governor's wife came, and I got another copy of it, I prayed about it, and I didn't really know what to do. Who would I give it to? I sent it to my mom and daddy, and they read it every day. And my mom says sometimes she'll look back at different days and read it, and that means a lot to me. I mean, they've always read their Bible, but now they have a devotional. And it's like they're sharing something with me, or I'm sharing something with them. In Jesus Calling, it always talks about Jesus' presence. Well, I didn't sleep well last night because, thinking about this. And I sat on my bed, I played my game, I read my book, and it kept, tugging at me to read this, today's devotional. So I pulled it out and I read it, and I'm thinking about it, and I read it again, and I know that He's there for us in everything. You can't see Him, but you can sit back and watch what He does. I read the devotional every day, and sometimes I have to read it 2 or 3 times to fully understand. But I know that He's there. He's here for everybody, but you have to want Him. They need to holler out to God. They need to read their Bible. They need to read Jesus Calling. I hope one day I get to go home. But if I don't, that's okay. Seminary is going to equip me with what I need to help these ladies on the compound. There's so many ladies here hurting, and I want to help them.
To find out more about how to get copies of Jesus Calling to women and men in prison communities near you, please visit thenextdoor.org/Jesus-calling. Hear more great stories about the impact Jesus Calling is having all over the world. Be sure to subscribe to the Jesus Calling podcast on iTunes. We value your reviews and comments so we can reach even more people with the message of Jesus Calling. And if you have your own story to share, we'd love to hear from you. Visit JesusCalling.com to share your story today.